All right, are we back? Oh, I think we're back. Honestly, I think. Um, Ruh-roh, Shaggy. We're back. Yeah, everybody refresh. But it's like, why isn't. Okay, why isn't YouTube loading? God damn it. Oh, we're okay. So loading now. Has anyone returned?
It's pretty awkward for him now that the country's coming together and it's Canadian pride, and we're under attack by the very people that he's been cozying up to. So literally, as we speak, he's trying to find a Canadian flag to wrap himself in and play patriot. Last refuge of a scoundrel. The last time I checked, if I know my American history, Anthony.
Well, but aren't
It's the
liberals doing that too?
Right now, it's working. That's the thing that has people like me and Alistair and you concerned. So
it's not working though, because now it's being called out. We're in a position where, if I may, where the consequences of these attitudes
you guys can't see
are becoming apparent. And so we have what is an economic attack, economic force, to use the word of the president against Canada. Series of insults that we're the 51st state and our prime minister is a governor, etc. And Canadians are looking for two things. Well, who's been
we're
defending
back up at
the
9
country,
viewers.
who's
Hello.
been running it down?
Thanks for sticking around, everybody.
I've been defending it, and who can build. Who can negotiate with President Trump, but also, very importantly, and I think this is more important, it goes back to being masters in our own home. Like, who is going to drive this economy forward? And that, as you know, Mooch, it puts you in a better negotiating position if you're strong at home, right? You got to be strong where you are in order to negotiate abroad.
So let me just ask this question from an American perspective. The right, they disagree with each other, Mark, but they all lock together. They get very well organized in the United States. There are many senators, so a donor to some of them, that they dislike Donald Trump, but they'll say very positive things about him in the press. The left in our country, Barack Obama once made a comment. He said, I'm a member of six disorganized parties. I'm a Democrat. Everyone laughed, but is that true in Canada? And if it is, how do you, as the leader, you win the party's leadership, how do you galvanize everybody and have the organization and skill set to keep everybody in the boat the way the right does?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the first is that the Liberal Party in Canada has traditionally balanced the two. And so, to use the color scheme here, red is liberal, blue is conservative. And so you'll have a component of the Liberal Party, which is blue liberals who are fiscally conservative, care about the economy, but also care about social justice. Then there's a big wing of the party, if I can talk about it in those terms, that takes the economy more or less for granted and thinks about those social justice issues and where should we move forward on those. And the job of the leader is to balance the two, and when things get out of line, to bring them back into equilibrium. it goes back to an earlier discussion we have. I think things got out of line in terms of less attention on the economy and fiscal responsibility. It's part of my role is, look, that's what I know. I care about those other issues, but I know that, look, we can't redistribute what we don't have. We can't be strong abroad if we're weak at home. We can't build for the future if we can't manage the present. So let's do all those things now, make ourselves strong. And that's what's going to ensure that, we have big, I'll make one other point. We have big challenges in our healthcare system here. Many countries do. It's a provincial responsibility, not a federal responsibility. But if the federal government isn't helping to make sure that our economy is strong, those provinces don't have enough resources to fix their healthcare system. I mean, that's the reality. And I think that's how you
so much
broker
snow
it.
tonight.
And I'm being very upfront with people as I go
Another
around the country.
30 to
that's
40
part of
centimeters,
what's at stake.
Mark, I on the podcast recently, we put a shout out to Polyev to come on and do an interview, and I can't believe that there won't be at least somebody in his team who's watching this interview. So I want to repeat that now.
They're in the live chat, I'm sure.
I'd like to get to know him better. I actually watched his interview with Jordan Peterson. You're right; it was a sort of right wing populist talking point. Love it. But who do you see when you've got two campaigns running simultaneously? You're in a campaign for the leadership,
yeah,
and you're in a campaign which you want to win that, and then you're straight into a campaign for the country. Okay, very different challenges, and
potentially straight in, potentially not. That's not decided.
Yeah, okay, but you don't have long. Put it out.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to see any of the lawn signs by Monday.
I get in this role.
And I'll be counting them. And just so you know, I'm the official scorer. So if Alistair says 4 Scaramucci's, wait until I give
will wait for
final referee review of everything. Okay, just make sure.
But just tell me what's the core of your strategy to win the leadership, and beyond that, what's the core of your strategy then to get elected against Polyev?
Well, look, there are two things on the core of the strategy for the leadership is versus Polyev. It's straight against Polyev and straight more positively what we can do for the country. I think it's important.
Excuse me.
To have that. You got to have that positive vision. That's why I'm in is to build the country, make us stronger, so we can bring everyone up with our broader social programs and others. What has to come alongside that for the leadership process, though, is galvanizing the base, building the base of the Liberal Party. We've increased the Liberal Party membership collectively. It's gone up almost 4 times to 400,000 members.
Apparently raised $1.9 million
dollars. Spending
since the beginning of the leadership.
I'm spending the vast majority of my time crisscrossing the country, meeting with Liberals. We're getting huge crowds, 1,000 people out. Those kind of numbers. Minus 30 in Saskatoon on Wednesday. This is and that's energizing, as you know, right? When you're going out and meeting people and hearing what they need and coming back and forth with them. So, core for the leadership, apart from, basically it's a general election campaign type strategy, if I can put it that way, going what we see for the country, what we're going to do, showing the sharp contrast with Polyev. But in parallel, building the party, because we've got to build the party back up, and so far it's going well.
When you sit down with your key people, and you're being absolutely honest with yourself and with each other, what do you define as your core strengths and your core weaknesses?
Look, your strength is always your weakness. So my strength is, I think you touched on it at the start. My strength is I know how the world works. I know how to get things done. I'm connected. I can deliver for the country. And my weakness is, people will charge me as being elitist or a globalist, to use that term, which is, that's exactly, it happens to be exactly what we need. My weakness as a politician is I've not been a politician, right? So I didn't go straight into, as you observed, the killer. The point was right, but the delivery was
a wild.
I'm working on it. I am. That's
globalist elitist is exactly what Canada needs.
I am a pragmatist. I am a leader. I'm a leader of organizations. I'm a leader in crises. So that's the strength that I'm trying to project, and it resonates. I feel it resonates across the country.
Anthony, if you were on the other side of a fight with Mark Carney, how would you take him on?
Well, he's tough. He can't be underestimated because he knows the policy and he knows how to come back to you in a very subtle way, right? So Trump has all that bombast, and the right is, like a rock'em sock'em robot. So I would probably go after Mark on, and again, Mark, forgive me, but I would probably go after you that you left the country, you were at the Bank of England. Exactly, it's not a carpetbagger label because you're a Canadian native and a Canadian citizen, but I would try to position you that you're out of touch with the mainstream common citizen in Canada. That's probably what I would try to do. And your response to that would be?
Well, my response would be twofold. One is that I'm not, because I live here and work here, and I'm, my life has been in service, or most of my life in Canada has been in service of those of Canadians. And then secondly, who's more in touch with everyday Canadians? Someone like me, or someone who's been a lifelong politician, who lives in a taxpayer-funded mansion, who's driven around by a chauffeur and bodyguard, who has a lifetime pension paid by Canadian taxpayers, and whose diet of news is from the United States, is Fox News, whose favorite people are podcasters in the U.S., and who, if you could swap out Canada, if you swapped in America for Canada in most of his talking points, you'd think, okay, this is Trump, this is MAGA.
Well, I'm not saying that you have to be driven around by a chauffeur, but if you're traveling with Alistair Campbell from Glasgow to London, don't sit in steerage like he does. Okay, he had me jammed in between 3 or 4 service dogs, and I mean this was the train from hell. Okay, and Mark, I am a bougie person, right? I'm not a politician. I just tell you I'm a bougie person. But this guy, it's unbelievable. Don't travel with him.
He has traveled.
I have traveled with it.
Yeah, yeah.
He went to the Burnley Everton game.
Burnley Everton match. Yeah,
very, very, very comfortable.
In the back of the train, Mark. In the back of the train.
We're in the back of something.
My God.
But let's just go to Trump. I want to ask you both. Marks out of 10. How surprised were you when Trump came in and literally the first other country he attacked, along with Mexico, was Canada? How surprised were you, Mark?
I'd say 6. I wasn't totally surprised. The relationship between him and the current prime minister, is not great. Number one.
Oh yeah,
number
Ignatieff.
2, I felt that he would want a renegotiation of a quick renegotiation of NAFTA. In fact, I'll tell you a story very quickly, and so that's the second thing. But on the morning after the president was elected, the message from someone in the government was, Canadians are anxious, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. And I contacted the PM and I was like, why is that the message?
One of my favorite clips.
Everything is not going to be okay. These guys are going to come after us, and we're going to have to adjust. And it's better to prepare Canadians for that reality. Now, it happened so quickly that it quickly moved to dealing with that reality. So I was somewhat surprised. I'm surprised by the scale of it. I should be more succinct. I'm surprised by the scale of it, as opposed to the direction of it. I did expect that we wouldn't have a good start.
Anthony?
I would say that, look, it's right down his checklist, right? I mean, so, he's Vladimir Putin's president. And so what would you like to have? You'd like some destabilization of North America, some reordering of that. You'd like a lot of xenophobia and nativism in America. You want to turn the opinion of America to non-Americans as a cynical, harsher, harder country. I always tell my friends here, the outside world looks at America very differently than we as Americans look at it. And so, yeah, so I mean, he's doing very, very predictable things. I guess as a Canadian, though, I guess what I would say to you, can you wait out Donald Trump? And maybe Trudeau's message is it's going to be fine because we can wait him out. And then the issue is, is he ever leaving? I mean, there's a group of people here think he's going to try to figure out a way not to leave, at which point there'll be a constitutional crisis. But as a Canadian, you have your interests. You have to put Canada first, but you're also a North American. So how do you go about this, Mark?
I think I'm going to answer this way. I think it would be a mistake to just assume. It is a mistake to assume that this is an aberration. This is the second time the president's been elected, as you've detailed, and I do listen to you guys both on the Rest is Politics and Trip US.
Who do you like more, Carney? Who do you like more?
Caddy and Rory.
That was like a 7. Hey, Alistair, that was like a 7-10 split in bowling. Okay,
that's him being he's learning much. He's being political.
I'm trying to keep. I'm Big Ten.
Hold on
Big
a second.
Ten.
I think I lost something down here. Let me just pick it back up.
It's a Big Ten. No, look. So I think it's a mistake to see it as aberration. This is a point you have made, Anthony.
Turn off the dang old heater.
Sort of depth in terms of the reorientation. I listen very carefully whenever the vice president speaks. And there's depth in terms of the orientation there. So that's first thing. The second is, where does Canada-US go medium term? Look, there are certain areas where it makes sense for us to be quite tightly tied under any type of administration. The nature of our auto sector, for example, conventional oil and gas, there's existing relation. I know the president's going after
it's Brett Kissel's Our Home was
just the balance on energy security. We need to diversify our markets for conventional oil and gas, and we will. I think security, including the security in the Arctic, very much hugely important issue. We're going to spend. My government will really focus on this, but doing it in concert with the U.S. makes all the sense in the world, and I think that logic will play out. But at the same time, an absolute imperative for us is to diversify our commercial relationships internationally, and we are the energy of the future. We are we have the biggest deposits of uranium. We're the biggest non-China on rare earths and metals and minerals. We are a clean energy superpower starting, and that's going to expand. Those are huge. Those are great cards.
A lot of them are in the
We're
north.
not just going to give those cards to the United States. In fact, we're going to play them with other jurisdictions as well as the United States. And so diversifying that is important. And I think it's welcome to have a silver lining on this, is that the last few months have really shaken Canadians, if you will, or those who make those decisions, that's what we need to do.
How would you take it? Let's say you become Prime Minister. How will you handle it psychologically, politically, diplomatically when he starts calling you the 51st governor?
Governor Carney. Well, he's been a governor before. You got to have a better answer than that.
See.
Oh,
because
we'll see. He's not. You're not going to get a mic drop.
Change
moment.
Creates opportunity, and there are some serious issues.
He's not just going to move on after that.
Between the countries, serious issues that we can work on together quite effectively. The border issues around fentanyl. I've made this point that I understand why the president has focused on that. It is a full-blown crisis in the United States. It's a very, very serious. It's a tragedy in Canada as well. But he's focused on America, and we need to work with him on that. Issues around security and others, we can work together. We'll have to see when that serious conversation really happens with the United States, whether it's after this process is finished. We have a new prime minister. Obviously, I hope it's me. And before an election, whether there can be constructive engagement, then that would be the most, that would be the best circumstance, at least, or after a mandate from the people. But that we will have a Canadian government with a strong mandate, I think, to negotiate with the United States. And my government will have many other options than just going in there and accepting a piece of paper. Polyev,
not from
will
our
have
cold
the
dead
agreement
hands,
written
Santa's
for him.
sick.
You see what Mark is saying that he's not going to say, because you're actually a really good politician, Mark, way better than me and Alistair. Okay, but what's happened
Ain't
here is
happening.
Trump has been briefed now. Trump made his bloviating comments, and then his team got to him and said, okay, just so you know, this is the amount of electricity
You guys
that
are not ready
California
for the
gets from
Quebecois
Canada.
insurgency.
This is the amount of aluminum that our car manufacturers get. Oh, by the way, we built our refineries in such a way to refine Canadian oil. Okay. And that's why that pipeline that they were all fighting over was put in place. And so Trump has been told by his advisors, be careful what you wish for with Canada. So when Mark is saying we'll see, he knows that a reset up in Canada will give Trump a chance to reset, because the Canadians, whether the Americans like it or not, can really damage the U.S. economy. And so, Trump goes off half-cocked, but he's now been briefed, and this will give Mark, and this is the most compelling case you've made for your prime ministership, is that if you want Canada to be strong and you want Canada to be vibrant, independent, and sovereign from America, the Canadian people have to go with you, Mark, because you don't want to slave in that position to Donald Trump. And hopefully the majority of the Canadian citizens will see that, and you'll be in the best position, I think, to keep the integrity of what we love about Canada.
I hope your comms people are listening to that last bit, Mark. Do you want a leader or do you want a slave?
I'm available for 11 days, Mark. This is a consultant, okay?
Or a slave.
I expire.
We need some front stabbing up here,
Anthony.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
somebody who's only ever done the job for 11 days, I thought that was pretty good messaging. But he was still at the 51st state stuff yesterday.
Yeah,
and he's hard to get off these shticks when he gets into them.
Yeah, look, understood. But you can go from
he gets like mini obsessions, and then
you can go from that
can't
to,
be pushed
to
off
a partnership.
for a long time.
Things change, right? Anthony knows this. Things can change very quickly, and we can be in a position where we have once again the greatest trade deal in history, which is what the President Trump described what they call USMCA as, and now he says it's the worst deal. I mean, it is the deal he signed. So things can go back the other direction. And part of our job is or my job would be to accomplish that in a way that's best for Canada. But of course, you're not going to get a deal unless something also works for the United States as well. Mm-hmm. Underscored all of this, though, is and the mood of the country, rightly, Canadians are very, very smart, and they clock the fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, and they want to build out from at home. We'd love to do a good agreement with the United States. I think that agreement is possible, but it takes both sides to come to it. But at a minimum, and I'm going to quote former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, conservative. Did appoint me as governor of the Bank of Canada, so I owe him for that. And he said, look, the country should be prepared to take significant economic pain to protect our sovereignty versus the United States. His words to that effect last week, which is the mood of the country. And I'll give you one fact though, which is. The hit from U.S. tariffs. Let's say President Trump does 25% tariffs across the board, including on energy and various things. Maybe a little more on aluminum, a little more on autos. That impact on our GDP it's significant, but it's smaller than if we move to free trade in Canada. We got a lot of interprovincial trade barriers. So when we talk about being masters in our own home, being in control of our destiny, we can have free trade in Canada and offset President Trump. And that's before we do a bunch of these big projects and build all the homes and everything else we need. So if we really set our minds to it, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine.
You mentioned the vice president, and yesterday he was in Munich at the security conference, and he made one of the most extraordinarily charmless, offensive, infantile on many levels speeches I think I've ever seen a senior politician make. I'm not expecting you to agree with my analysis, but I just wondered whether you felt, as I did watching it,
just getting them to.
This is really, really weird. These guys have decided that their friends are their enemies and their enemies are their friends. He's nicer about Putin than he is about Germany. That is weird.
I think the following. I read the speech. I didn't see it live. I read it this morning, and maybe the delivery different. I thought the points about, I'm going to call it liberty, freedom of speech, liberty. I think
that's Mark Carney up here, guy running for Liberal leader, one of the front runners. Anthony Scaramucci, and British journalist Alistair Campbell.
A reflection.
It's a very weird grouping of people.
I don't know that all the examples are exactly as they were depicted, but
they weren't.
Yeah, okay. But the general point which we face as democracies of what is free speech and what do we allow and what is positive and negative liberty, I think these are important things in this age of disinformation.
Yeah, but this is a guy who pretends that Trump didn't lose the election against Biden. This is a guy who says the AP have been banned from the White House because they refused to say Gulf of America. Okay.
Yeah.
You're a politician. You're a politician.
I'm taking what the vice president said, not what the vice president said in that element there. I thought that of course, it's often what's unsaid, which is your point, which is that you're at the Munich Security Conference and you're not talking about the biggest threats to our democracies, which are China and Russia and Iran. Particularly. And so it was, life is all about choices. It was an interesting choice, but I wouldn't totally discount these issues about freedom of speech and getting those right and getting the balance right and being upfront about how you get the balance right are hugely important. And, last point I'll make, and I hand back, which is, we have a real issue in Canada, as other places do, with foreign interference in our election or in our democratic processes.
What's he going to say?
And we've seen it from most of the major powers, including the tech powers, I might add, but also the major powers. And it's a very live issue of how do we preserve a public space where it's battle of ideas, with common facts, so Canadians can make informed decisions.
Mark, I got to ask you this. Put your different hats on that you've worn in your career and think about it historically over the last 80 years. Has America been abused and taken advantage of by the global community? And if it hasn't, make the case why it hasn't. And if it has, what does it say about where Trump and Vance are speaking from?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure those are the adjectives or the verbs I'd use. But
those are Trump's words. That's why I'm using.
I think, fair enough. I think that the whole thing around Pax Britannia before and Pax Americana after is that you're so dominant as a part of the global economy that it's in your interests to support the institutions and peace because you get more of the gains of it. You get a disproportionate amount of the gains. And as you get smaller relative to the global economy, that becomes less and less the case. Okay. So that's just a natural dynamic that works there. It's not all altruism. The second thing is that I think there has been an element of taking America for granted and the scale of American commitments for granted. And people, Canada included, have to catch up. This is something that didn't occur overnight. It's occurred over decades. So there is some merit. There's quite often merit in what the president is saying, or elements of merit. I think what is most concerning, I'll stop on this, and this is a domestic and an international point, which is around the rule of law and what are the norms and structures that operate. And if looking at you in the backdrop, the New York skyline there, when you look at financial markets and how the global economic system is, one of the most important things is you operate where there's rule of law and under certain rules of the game. And look, the rules of the game are changing pretty rapidly. I don't think the market is, the market kind of sometimes goes through these periods where it doesn't realize things and then all of a sudden starts to price them in. I think we're getting close to that. If this trade war continues to intensify, we're in a very, very different economic world. So yes, yes to the first part of your question. I'm just adding on some of what's at stake.
Mark, we got lots of questions on the chat, which I've been looking at. We haven't got to. I said at the start, we shouldn't keep you for
Chat's blown up.
You've got a campaign to run.
I got to get out and talk to
okay, and in fact, you should have been much tougher with us on the timekeeping, but there we are. But we also got some. Once we advertised we were doing this, we got some questions from the Globe and Mail. I don't know if they've been chasing you, but they sent in lots of questions. They were really interested in your take on China. Your position on China in relation to foreign interference in Canada, which you mentioned, you alluded to there. What measures you take against China, if any, and what sectors of the Canadian economy you might limit. And it is interesting. This is the thing about Trump. Before Trump, if we were having this conversation, we probably would be talked a hell of a lot more about China, instead of which we'd be talked mainly about Trump.
Yeah.
So funny.
Look, we have a very challenging relationship with China because of Chinese actions, Chinese foreign interference, which is well documented. Unfortunately, well documented in previous Canadian elections and attempts at foreign interference. And I would commend actually our foreign office called Global Affairs Canada that recently caught some more attempts in this leadership election. Actually,
one of my favorite
against Christopher
federal
Freeland,
acronyms,
apparently
Global
from
Affairs
Chinese
Canada
sources. So these are serious issues. They're cannot be accepted and be without consequence. First thing. Secondly, we had a longstanding issue with the kidnapping, in effect, of two of our citizens, and that rightly has had consequences. So the relationship with China has been deeply affected, and we will have some opportunity to reset, but from a very different base, and elements of trust will need to be built up in certain areas. But the era of convergence. Let me make an obvious point. The view of the 90s and 2000s that there would be this economic and ultimately political convergence with China, that's decidedly over. Ended a long time ago.
It was kind of. I read your comment. I just hate listening to politicians dance around not to offend Trump. I get that's kind of what's needed to prevent all-out market war, and it's in the best interest for most countries. Just makes steam cut. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on both of those things. Where it's like, on the one hand, I understand from like a strategic point of view why you don't want to go out of your way to like antagonize Trump, but it's just like it just feels like a deficit of courage sort of thing. That's why I think people liked Harper's comments, which people have pointed out it's easier for Harper to say that now that he's not prime minister anymore, that he would accept any level of pain to keep Canada independent. Easier to say, well, you're not the one who's responsible for accepting that pain, but I think a lot of people really sort of responded to that sort of energy because it really captured the feeling I think a lot of Canadians had.
So we'll be very clear-eyed in terms of our relationships there.
Mooch, last question. I'll leave it to you.
Mooch makes me laugh every time.
It's 2028, Mark. Where is Canada? What's your vision for your beautiful country?
2028, we are much stronger as an economy. We have deep trading relationships with Europe, with like-minded countries in Asia, particularly Korea, Japan, Australia. We've got a balanced budget. We've got full employment. We've got real wages growing. And at the same time, we've made real advances in terms of economic reconciliation with First Nations and growing jobs for all strata of society, including very much, let me make two final points, white working class young men. And final point is that we're confident in ourselves. We celebrate our diversity, we recognize it, and we're an example to the Western world that you can balance social progress with economic strength, and we start to get a few imitators.
And does the G7 still exist?
Yeah, we're going to stop at 7. We're not looking at actually that. Let me reframe that. I'm not sure we could add, but we're not adding Russia.
Hey, we tried that. We tried.
And we just already have a G20.
Listen, Mark, it's been lovely to talk to you again. You've got your team's got a football match this afternoon against Crystal Palace, but I suspect you've got to be out working.
Thank you for the follow. I didn't see who that
check
is.
the score at the end of the
Wayne's
day. The
brain.
big
Thanks
match
for the follow.
or game tonight is Canada, United States ice hockey in Montreal in what's called the Four Nations. It is probably it's the biggest hockey game in the country in 25 years. Well, I don't know. Maybe since we played the Soviets. It's the biggest game in Canada since we played the Soviets in 1972.
And where do you stand on booing the American national anthem right now?
I think the Crosby golden goal game might have been a little bit bigger.
When the U.S. team
how's your Saturday going, Wayne's
disassociates themselves from calling us the 51st state, then we'll cheer the American anthem. Look, it's Canadians in the very, very short term have few outlets for their frustrations. In the medium term, in the not too distant future, we're going to have. I'm going to provide them with an outlet, which is a positive agenda. But if the way they express themselves is to boo the American national anthem, well, our country is under attack repeatedly and daily. Fair enough.
Good for you.
Good to talk to you.
Well, listen, Mark, I've known you for over 3 decades, and you have the right combination of kindness and toughness that your country needs.
How long sober?
I wish you nothing but the greatest success, and I hope I can be helpful to you in the future. And I've enjoyed our friendship over the years.
Thank you very much, Mooch. And thank you, Alistair.
My pleasure. I'm obviously just...
You are now my 2 favorite.
No, it's too late.
It's too late.
I already got buried. I already got buried in the chat. I mean, I'm ranked 4th.
Hell yeah.
The 4
Good
hosts.
for you.
I mean, it's terrible. I'm not even on the Olympic medal stand.
One day at a time.
All right.
See you soon. Take care, Mark.
Thanks very much.
All the best. Bye.
What do we have on the dock?
And finally, of course, we're an Indo-Pacific nation, and we have to make sure that we protect our western flank. There's no security architecture in the Indo-Pacific.
I'm assuming this has been looping, right? There's no way she's been going for 4 hours.
Sur la Syrie, qui s'est tenue à Paris il y a quelques jours. Tous les membres du G7 soutiennent le peuple.
I don't know where it starts and where it begins, and the audio is terrible. We got about 50 minutes left. Yeah, let's watch some of this debate. The Ontario. I don't speak it very well. I have very bad confidence, but like I'm decently good at understanding it when I hear it, or reading it. I can muddle through. I think my French is probably slightly above average than like your average Canadian, but like for Ottawa, it's probably pretty below average. Yeah, and sometimes it's just like but that's just more. It's like it's just you hear it over and over again. You start to go like, okay, I know what that means. I've heard this phrase before. I took extended French in elementary school and high school and didn't learn till like grade 8. Then I'm like, what do you mean they speak a different French in Quebec? Because we're learning Parisian French.
Just 13 days away on February 27th, the first leaders debate of this election, presented by FNOM, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, arriving on Valentine's Day.
I like to learn Spanish too, but I should probably figure out French better first.
Fresh off a trip to Washington, D.C. alongside the other premiers in Canada, and then Bonnie Crombie arriving, the leader of the Ontario Liberals.
I will skip
fresh off a
ahead.
trip to Barrie, Ontario.
Questions again that were developed by Phenom. The order of the opening remarks has already been made by draw. Now, Phenom has asked each of the parties to provide a short biography of their leaders, and we'll begin with what was provided by the Liberal Party. Bonnie Crombie will deliver more for the people of Ontario. More access to health care, more for your kids and their classrooms, more support for working families to make life affordable. As a mayor of Mississauga and a member of Parliament, she made life better for real people every day. She has the experience as a leader and as a business executive that our province needs right now. Bonnie's plan will get everyone in Ontario.
This is weird to have
cut taxes and lower home heating and hydro bills and build homes that people can actually
moderator
afford.
reading the opening
Bonnie
statements.
is going to do more for you. Next to Bonnie Crombie is Marit Stiles, the leader of the Ontario NDP. She is served
Why
as
not?
the leader of the official opposition in the Legislative Assembly in the 43rd Parliament. Stiles came to Ontario from Newfoundland to study and
This
stay
is
because
weird.
of what Ontario offered, the opportunity to build a good life. Stiles has dedicated her life to public service and helping make life better for people across Ontario. She worked for cabinet ministers in the first Ontario NDP government.
I mean, it's probably just
has
so they
led
can
health
save
policy
time and make sure
development
none of the
and
leaders go
negotiated to
rogue and
defend
just start
Canadian
monologuing,
workers
but
and
still.
jobs as Director of Policy
It's just
and
strange to
Marketing
have
at
like
NACFA.
these words coming out of the mouth
Stiles
of the
stepped up to
moderator.
serve as a trustee at the Toronto District
that make
School
sense?
Board, the largest school board in North America, and was first elected MPP for Davenport in 2018.
Even, but like the
Stiles
bios
Toronto
were
with a partner
written
in two
by
others.
the
From
campaigns,
winning
I
good deals
think.
for workers,
So it's
to
still like
standing up
it's
for
stump
stronger public
speechy.
schools as an
Still.
MVP, and now
Yeah, yeah, no, this he
fulfilling
wrote
the
them
promise of
himself.
Ontario as the leader of the Ontario NDP.
What's that? What's
Stiles
his
is
name
running
from
to be a premier
The West
on your
Wing?
side.
When he was at that football
Next,
game and he's
Doug
just
Ford.
wearing the NFL hat and he's
Ford's
like,
entire
I'm just here
career
for the
has
love of
been
the game.
built around protecting people.
I think he was at like
A
the Super
businessman
Bowl
before
too.
entering politics, Ford knows what it takes to create jobs and protect people's paychecks. As a city councillor, Ford fought hard to protect taxpayers. As the 26th Premier of Ontario, Ford is fighting hard to protect Ontario's economy. He's protecting Ontario's neighborhoods from dangerous criminals and cleaning up our streets by clearing out encampments and banning drug injection sites near schools and daycares. Now, as Canada stares down the threat of Donald Trump's tariffs,
God.
Ford is ready to fight for what's right. 2 minutes. Oh my goodness. Question with Mark.
Oh my God, they almost skipped the opening statements.
Oh my goodness. My bad.
I'm ready. We can go to questions.
Thanks for that.
Damn.
Skip the questions. Let's go to the opening statements. We'll come back to that question in a second, and I'm not going to repeat it. So let's have our opening statements. We begin with Bonnie Crombie of the Liberal Party.
Thank you. Hello, bonjour, North Bay. I love this province as much as I love this country, but I don't like seeing what Doug Ford is doing to it. After 7 years of Doug Ford's government, 2.5 million people don't have a family doctor, 2,000 of them right here. 13,000 people have overdosed because of the opioid crisis, and 2,000 people every day get treated in a hallway. Millions of people tell me that they can't afford their groceries and pay their rent in the same month. This is Doug Ford's Ontario today. Enough is enough. My mom always told me, Bonnie, if you don't like it, change it. So I did. I left my job as the mayor of the great city of Mississauga, and I decided to run for premier because it's time to stop the downloading and it's time to stop the giveaway to Doug Ford's rich friends and do something for you again. And it starts with getting the basics right. And my commitment to you is that you will all have a family doctor in 4 years. I will cut your taxes and I'll take the HST off your home heating and hydro, and we will build affordable housing again when you vote for Ontario's Liberals. Thank you.
Next up, Marit Stiles, leader of the NDP.
Thank you so much. Bonjour tout le monde. Hello, everybody. I'm Marit Stiles, and I'm so proud and excited to be here in Northern
Yeah,
Ontario.
the push-up contest
The
thing
first
was
job that I got when I
hilarious.
first
I'm like, what are you
moved
doing?
to Ontario, like 30 years ago.
Because it's like, what if he wins?
Was actually supporting northern communities to access healthcare, to create good jobs. And I always felt right at home here. And there's a reason why. It's because where I grew up, people looked out for each other, and Northerners do that too. Northerners also feel very proud about the place you come from. And I would add, that I also knew what it was like when governments in Toronto and in Ottawa took the resources from us and didn't give back to our communities. Now, Ontario should be a place full of opportunity. That's why I came here. My daughters are now young adults, and Ontario is not the province that it wasn't when it once was. It doesn't have the same promise. 7 years after Doug Ford,
Should be a
and the
champion
Conservatives
versus
have
champion
cost you.
contest.
Bad deals, wasteful
Oh, yeah.
scandals, and lots
Like
of
send their
promises, but
their
nothing
best
delivered.
champion to do
That's the
push-ups.
truth. And as we face one of the biggest threats that our province has ever faced in Donald Trump, Doug Ford decided to quit his job. Well, I'm applying for that job today. And let me tell you, I am going to be a premier on your side. I am going to fight the rising cost of everything. I'm going to hire doctors. I'm going to make sure that our highways are safe. I'm going to make sure that we have good jobs, and I am going to defend every job in every single sector. And I promise to you, I will never, ever take Northerners for granted. Thank you.
Next up is Doug Ford, leader of the Conservative Party.
Well, thank you, and I'm so thrilled to be back in this great city of North Bay. You know, folks, over the last 7 years, we've made so much progress in Northern Ontario, standing up for Northern Ontario and the people and their jobs here. Now we face down the threat of Donald Trump's tariffs that want to try to destroy our economy, want to destroy our families, but I can tell you that's not going to happen under my watch. Now, as we face Donald Trump's tariffs, we become stronger, we become more united, more resilient. I've never seen patriotism like this running so wild across our province. Northern Ontario is blessed with an abundant supply of critical minerals. And I can tell you, the world wants these critical minerals. We need to mine and process Ontario's critical minerals here. They're no good just sitting in the ground or being shipped off to China. We need to make sure we keep these jobs here, because Northern Ontario has never ever been more important to protect our province and protect our country. Folks, over the next 4 years, we need a strong mandate to outlive and outlast Donald Trump's administration, and I'll make sure I protect the families, protect businesses, protect jobs, and protect communities. Thank you.
And our final leader is Mike Schreiner of the Green Party.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. It's great to be in North Bay, and I appreciate ONelxn hosting today's debate. As someone who grew up on a farm in a rural community, I know what it's like to have to deal with a government that abandons you for big cities. I know what it's like to struggle, and I can tell you so many people in Ontario are struggling right now. It's not fair that rural and northern communities are being abandoned by a government wasting money on tunnels and spas in downtown Toronto instead of investing in rural and northern communities. I can tell you Ontario Greens will fight for fairness, generational fairness, so young people can afford a home, and the 81,000 people experiencing homelessness will have a safe place to live tonight. We're going to fight for fairness in our healthcare and education systems so we can end hallway medicine, ensure everyone has a primary care doctor, and that our students aren't learning in overcrowded classrooms due to a $15
Is our students learning?
cut per pupil.
Have the parties ever agreed on anything this much?
We're going to fight to protect the
No,
places
and it's
we
funny
love.
because they just keep
In
accidentally
Ontario,
saying like the
your
exact
premier
same
is
things,
attacking them to benefit
which is very
wealthy
funny.
land speculators at your expense. We can invest
And then
in our
accusing
students,
each other
our
of
people,
copying
lower your taxes,
the other.
build homes, fix healthcare, fix education, and protect the places we love. That's what Ontario Greens are fighting for. That's the fair Ontario you deserve.
Thank you, Mike Schreiner. So Let's get to the questions that I was so anxious to get to. These are questions, again, prepared by FONOM, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities. And that first question is about what your government would do to ensure municipalities in Northern Ontario would get their fair share of funding. What would your party do to modernize the financial relationship between the province and municipalities? And Margaret Stiles, we will begin with you.
Excellent. I was ready the first time, but I'm ready to go now. Times are very tough right now for so many Ontarians. Every time you check the mail, there's a bill there that's just gone up again.
Where's my money, Ford? I still haven't got my $200 check.
Our towns and our cities are also feeling that strain. There was a time when your provincial government actually took care of it.
Does anyone in the chat know who
They made
Vance
sure that the
Gaspardo
roads were
is?
clear and the highways were well maintained. Conservatives and liberals downloaded.
I know who Nick Kuvalis is, but I don't know who Vance Gaspardo is.
Those costs are then
I
passed
think that
on
might
to
be
you.
that's even too inside
That has
baseball
been
for me.
bad for everyone. To
Although
make that fair, our plan is a new deal for
I'm not
municipalities.
like the
province
provincial
is going to take
politics.
back,
I'm not as
a lot of the responsibility
well
for
informed on.
paying for many things that should have always been provincial responsibilities, like
Vince
mental
Gaspardo.
health and
That
road
it sounds
maintenance between
familiar, but I
towns, like
don't.
truly affordable housing. And we're going to bring down costs
It's not
for
a,
Northerners in the process. And on top of that, I want to tell you as well, we have a plan
Face
to
that's
bring
coming to
down
mind.
the cost of everything and to put more of your hard-earned money back in your pocket with our monthly grocery rebate. That
No
means
worries.
every month, you're going to get money back in your pocket that you can spend on food. It's time that Northerners and northern communities had a government that was on their side and that people could actually afford the cost of living in the north again. We're losing our young people. We're losing them every day. They're leaving our communities. I hear it from you all the time. You need a government and a premier who's back on your side.
Thank you, Margaret Stiles. We're going to go to Doug Ford, leader of the Conservatives, to talk about the financial relationship between the province and municipalities and how it can be modernized.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the question. There's no party that's ever given more money, more transfers to municipalities, all 444 municipalities, than the PC government. That's the reason. We have more endorsements from mayors across this province than all three parties combined. The best way to deliver revenue to northern municipalities is by unleashing Northern Ontario's economic potential. And I'll tell you where their potential is. Their potential in the north is called the Ring of Fire. We've had great progress with our First Nations communities, Martin Falls, Webequie, Arrowland, historic agreements that are going to make sure that we build that road up to the Ring of Fire that consists of almost over $1 trillion. $1 trillion of critical minerals that the world wants, the U.S. wants. You know, as Donald Trump's tariffs are coming at us, and it doesn't matter if it happens tomorrow, next month, or in a year, I can tell you Northern Ontario plays a critical role in protecting our province and protecting our country. Thank you.
Mike Schreiner of the Green Party.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not quite sure which mayors Mr. Ford is talking about, because when I talk to mayors and councillors, all they talk to me about is the crushing financial burden that's been downloaded onto their backs by the PC government.
Loves a bird.
I talk to
Yes, the Ring of
especially
Fire.
mayors in rural and northern communities who say it is just not fair that we're struggling to keep roads and bridges open when the premier is spending $2.2
What's
billion.
funny is, like, I'm dumb. I thought the Ring of Fire was like oil and gas related, but it's like minerals.
Which isn't needed because we have a good highway next to it. Meanwhile, Northern Ontario, you're looking for, can we just, have a divided highway 11 and 17? Can we finish Highway 69? Can we reverse the downloading of housing and shelter costs onto our backs? Those
Trump's
things
gonna change the
are
Constitution and
leading
run a third time.
oftentimes in rural
So
and
is Ford
northern
asking for
communities
an
to double-digit
Maybe.
property tax increases. I call them the Ford government property tax increase. The Ontario Greens would provide municipalities with
Although I'm sure
dedicated,
he'd be fine
predictable
running
funding,
another election
$28
in
billion
probably
over the
2
next
years.
4 years, so we can build homes you can afford, so we can ensure people are housed, we can ensure that your roads and bridges stay open without these double-digit tax increases brought on by the provincial government.
Bonnie Crombie of the Liberals.
Thank you. Well, I think the question originally was about your fiscal framework, and I know the municipal leaders are really concerned about that. And having been there and worn that hat, I know the impact that the downloading from the province makes. And I know that you want to build thriving communities and you want to stop the mental health, the homelessness crisis, the addiction crisis, but it's been downloaded onto the municipal taxpayer. I want to be sure that you have
I'm to do all these
sustainable
things.
funding
Why?
that
Because
you
he's bad.
need
He's bad because
to
I
keep
say
your
he
local
is.
roads open, the ability to
I
build
don't think we're
supportive
going to
housing
become.
with wraparound
Also, it's just like it'd be so silly to make Canada all one. Even if I accept the goddamn silliness of that, you got to make it at least a couple. Like, there's no way one governor can. Like, it's just not happening. Like, I thought you got, like, it was like, if this is how poorly you guys understand Canada, holy crap, I don't even think we fully comprehended how little you understood places like Afghanistan or Iraq. Also, I feel like you guys, like, Alberta, like, you'd want to make Alberta and Saskatchewan at least their own states or separate states or one big state and get a bunch of electoral college votes out of that for the Republicans. Maybe split BC into two, so that you can have even more, then get the, like, sort of Fraser Valley conservatives away from the sort of coastal elites in Vancouver. I mean, we invade us and we can change that.
services, and to keep the roads open so that we can move those goods and services and get our kids to school. We have to upload. We have to upload all those healthcare issues, all those social issues that have been downloaded by Doug Ford and his government and put onto your taxpayer to help you make ends meet, to help you make your tax dollars go further so you can do what you were intended to do and let the province take on our responsibilities. I'm going to make your life more affordable for everyone here. Of course, you've heard me say we're going to cut middle income taxes, we're going to take the HST off your home heating and hydro, and we're going to double ODSP just to make your life a little more affordable. And we're going to upload all those costs that have been downloaded by the province to ensure that you can run your municipalities and that you don't have to have those large tax increases we know mayors right across this province have been suffering from. With respect to your industries, we're going to help them. We're going to support them. We're going to ensure that they have the ability to modernize. We're going to give them support through R&D and through innovation, both your forestry sector and your mining sector, because we need to protect those jobs. We're at risk of losing 500,000 jobs because of a tariff war. Can you imagine this premier chose this time to hold an election when he should be at his desk working hard to fight for us and to fight for our jobs, but he only wants to protect one job, and that's his own.
Thank you, Bonnie Crombie. We're going to just open things up for just a few minutes because we started a little late, but I just want to expand this conversation about money, the money to municipalities, and also the cost of living and what needs to change. With cost of living top of mind, so for so many Ontarians, including in the north, what would your government do to help Ontarians, starting with, again, Marit Stiles, but then we'll open it up if anyone else wants to jump in by all means.
Sure. I mean, as I said, look, we've seen under the Ford Conservatives, under Doug Ford's government, costs go through the roof. I mean, I was just looking at it today, and I think rent in Timmins has increased 31% under Doug Ford and his Conservative government. In North Bay, it's up 36%, right here in North Bay. In Thunder Bay, 40%. So Doug Ford, he stands here and he says that he's going to unleash the economic potential of Ontario. Where is that happening? It is not happening here.
Mr. Ford, would you like to address that?
Cannot afford to live like this anymore.
Well, I'm the only one on stage that has never raised a tax. We've never downloaded anything. We've uploaded to the province.
To do it.
I'm the only person that's not in favor of the carbon tax. We have Bonnie Crombie as the queen of the carbon tax. We have Marit Stiles that doesn't believe in mining at all, along with
I don't know if the
Mr. Steiner
laughing
here. They don't believe
is
in
going to
economic
play well.
development. all of them believe
There
in
you
one
go
thing.
again.
They
There you
believe
go
in
again.
Let Mr.
raising
Ford speak.
taxes. They have a proven record. Bonnie Crombie as mayor raised taxes every single year. And her city shrunk. The only city in Ontario that actually shrunk over a population boom. Unheard of.
Let's
I don't
go to
raise
Bonnie
taxes.
Crombie, though, to
All right,
address
why don't we
that.
go to
Go ahead,
Money
Bonnie
back
Crombie.
into your pocket.
Why don't we do that? Because of course, Doug, you're making up lies again. And we all know that. You are the highest debt
Wow.
and the highest deficit and the largest government on record. Because of you,
inherited from
jobs
you.
are leaving this province. Our unemployment rate, and we know it right here, is the highest in a decade. Our youth unemployment is at 17.1%. I have a plan to get for our young people 40,000 new jobs through apprenticeships, through co-op programs, through internships. Not like this man does. Jobs
Kind of a
are
good
leaving this
point.
province. Construction
With
jobs
high
went
inflation,
to Alberta
flat
and
taxes
to BC because
is
they're building
technically a
homes.
decrease.
Manufacturing jobs have left
I don't know
this
how
province
much
'cause you
taxpayers
haven't
will buy
built
that,
in
but-
incentives. You haven't built up our industries because you're not interested in protecting jobs.
Bonnie
Cities
Crombie, we're
need
going
a
to just
new-
let, because
Cities need a new deal, and that's what they'll get under Bonnie Crombie, because I know how municipalities
long
are
enough under
suffering
your previous
under the
government.
downloading of this man. Everything has been
I mean,
downloaded.
we
Mental
waited-
health,
waited
healthcare.
years.
let's go to Mike Schreiner for a
Chaos
couple of moments.
Thank you,
reigns.
Marcus. You know what? Mr. Ford promised a middle tax cut 7 years ago, hasn't delivered it. The Ontario Greens will lower taxes for people earning under $65,000 a year and families under $100,000 a year, putting $1,700 back in your pocket. So you can just pay for the basics that have gotten out of control with the Ford government. Ontario's housing prices are some of the highest in the world. Our housing starts are the lowest in Canada. I've put forward solutions to legalize building homes that people can afford in the communities they know and love. The Premier has said no. We've put forward a first-time homebuyers plan to save you up to $150,000 on your housing costs. Premier says no.
1 second.
We've said we'll protect renters. The Premier has said no. We said we'll build deeply affordable nonprofit and co-op housing again.
Mike
which
Schreiner, we're
hasn't
going to get to
happened in
housing.
decades. The Premier has said no to all those affordability solutions.
We're going to get to housing in just a moment, but Doug Ford, did you want to have a quick comment in response to this?
Yeah, I'd love to have a comment. You know, I've heard the comments about jobs. Well, under the Liberals and NDP, propped up by the NDP, 300,000 jobs were lost in this province. Today, there's over 850,000 more people bringing home a paycheck, a bigger paycheck, and a better job. Just last year alone, the manufacturers of this province, the companies of this province, actually created over 200,000 jobs.
We're down
Because we've
manufacturing
created the environment and
but they're leaving
conditions
the province.
by
Those
reducing
aren't
the
actual
burden by
jobs in the
$8 billion. We're the only government that's actually putting money back into people's pockets. Unlike the three on the stage here with me,
Sorry.
they would get rid of the license fee and put it back on the back of your cars. They'd bring back the tolls.
Rent
They'd
is up
increase gas by
38%.
10.7
Thank
cents.
you,
They
Doug.
believe in one thing: tax the people to death. I'll never raise the tax. I never will. We have seen again
That's 7 years.
850,000
7
more
years.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. We're just going to move on.
that weren't employed
Oh.
under the Liberals.
Thank you.
And under the
Hard and
NDP.
fast with the rules.
And, sorry, you weren't in the government at that time. Mike, you'd pop them up too. You love taxes.
I'd lower your taxes.
Wait,
I'm the guy talking about lowering taxes.
we do need to move
Mike's
on.
actually not a bad guy. I like him.
You're just
He
downloading.
just likes taxing
You're just
people. That's all.
downloading
Let's move on to the
municipalities. That's why
next
you don't-
question. We've got a timeline we've got to follow here. And next topic is housing, which you've already talked a bit about, Mr. Schreiner. Issue across the country. The increasing cost of living, the lack of affordable housing means more people are priced out of home ownership and many can't afford rent. The provincial government used to be responsible for social housing, but that was downloaded to municipalities in the 1990s. Would your party consider taking the issue of social housing off the backs of municipalities and make it a provincial responsibility? This time we're going to start with Doug Ford.
Well, we've done more for housing than any government. We've cut the red tape, we've cut regulations. And as the mayor of Mississauga, she's increased taxes. The only municipality in the province, as I said, that actually shrunk because of her high taxes, irresponsible taxes on the backs of people. We're cutting red tape to make sure we can get shovels in the ground. And for the folks, homeless folks, we put over $1 $1.4 billion to get them shelter, to give them a
Just to
lift
the
up,
tote.
rather
I
than be
don't even
stuck on
can't
the
remember last
streets.
time I played.
Folks, we're going to continue cutting red tape. By the way,
Multiple
that all
lamp.
three of
Is that
these
the one?
parties always voted
Wow.
against in the
Turn
legislature.
off that
They don't
setting.
believe it. They say we want to build.
Thank you. It's
They
much
don't believe in
appreciated.
building. Bonnie Crombie had the lowest builds in all of Ontario. And Mr. Schreiner, he won't cut down a dandelion to put the shovels in the ground. He just won't do it. And Mara, you don't believe in building. You vote against us on every single bill. You know, I see my friend Vic Fideli in there. He's beside me in the house. And he just keeps going in my ear saying, I can't believe these people. All they want to do is tax and build nothing and then criticize. We're a party of action. We're going to continue building, setting record numbers. We're ones who led right across the country getting rid of the HST on rental built housing. So we're going to continue lowering the cost. And I'd love to see the municipalities.
Where's my money, Ford?
chop out the delivery charges.
You owe me $200.
And making sure they put money back into people's pockets. And the DCs alone in Mississauga are $120,000 by the time you add up all the taxes. They don't want to build. They want to tax people to death. That's what they believe in. I don't believe in taxes.
Thank you, Doug Ford. Next up is Mike Schreiner of the Green Party. And again, the question from Phenom is, would your party consider taking the issue of social housing off the backs of municipalities and make it a provincial responsibility?
To answer your question, Marcus, yes, absolutely. We have that costed out in our Affordable Communities Plan. Municipalities spent almost $2.1 billion last year addressing housing and homelessness. The provincial government hardly added anything to that. Let's look at the record over the last 7 years. Housing starts are at an all-time low in Ontario. Housing prices are at an all-time high in Ontario. Why is that? Most of the government's housing plans have been, how do we unlock profits for wealthy land speculators instead of how do we unlock affordable homes that people can afford? The result of their housing record is we have a whole generation of young people wondering if they'll ever be able to afford a home. We live in a province where nowhere in this province can a minimum wage worker working full-time afford average monthly rent.
Hope has been
And
admitted to
now
hospital
we
with
have
bronchitis.
over 81,000 people experiencing homelessness right now in Ontario. Can you imagine that? So what would the Ontario Greens do? We're going to fight for generational fairness. Our plan to build for first-time home buyers would remove development charges and other fees to save up to $150,000 on a new starter home. We would remove the red tape that would enable you to build fourplexes and 4 stories in neighborhoods across the province. So we can build homes people can afford, where we already have infrastructure, in the communities they love, close to their families, close to where they work. We would bring back protections for renters, and we would get government back into building deeply affordable homes again. We need to build 310 deeply affordable nonprofit, co-op, and permanent supportive homes with wraparound mental health and addiction supports. 93% of the deeply affordable homes built in Ontario were built before 1995, and the last 2 governments have failed to change that. Ontario Greens will.
Thank you, Mike Schreiner. Up next is Bonnie Crombie about whether the province should be responsible for social housing.
So, Premier, you know, you talk a good tale and you sound kind of folksy and charming, but none of what you're saying is actually true. Because you told us 7 years ago you'd end hallway health care. It's gotten twice as bad. You said you'd cut our taxes, but you didn't do that either. You didn't get it done. And you said you'd build 1.5 million homes. You didn't get that done either. Our construction workers are going to Alberta and BC where they're eating our lunch. And so is Quebec for that matter. We built more homes in 1955 than we're building here today. In fact, we're not meeting 50% of our targets.
No.
That's terrible.
Or I don't
Children
know.
are losing the dream of owning their home.
How would I
have
know?
3 kids. 2 of them got married this summer, and both of them want to start a family. And they said, Mom, what are we going to do? We can't put money away because we can barely afford our rent. How are we going to afford that home? So I said to my team, we've got to lower the cost of building. We've got to reduce the price of a home, but yet we've got to make municipalities whole, because I know a lot about making municipalities whole as well. You got to keep their taxes low because this government, they just downloaded
I think the probably more accurate thing to say is they have
so of course,
sort of
municipalities, so many of them
similar
have
goals.
double-digit tax increases. My plan is to cut those hidden taxes at the end. They're called development charges, and we would get rid of them entirely. That'll lower the cost of building, it'll lower the price to the purchaser, and I have a fund called the Better Communities Fund that will make the municipalities whole as well. We're going to scrap the land transfer tax too, for seniors, for first-time home buyers, and also for not-for-profits. Our plan will save you $170,000 on a home and another $13,000 once we scrap the LTT. I want to make home building cheaper. I want your kids and mine to have a home again, because under Doug Ford's Ontario, there is no home building happening, and our children can't afford their rent, let alone put money aside to one day, again, hope that they can buy their own home.
Thank you, Bonnie Crombie. And finally, Marge Stiles of the NDP, about social housing being a provincial responsibility.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Marcus. And let's take a moment here to remember how we got into this place that we're in, right? Because back,
that's probably not the best thing to be like.
Liberal governments.
You're very good at being folksy and likable, and
at the provincial conservative
personable
governments that canceled the affordable building of homes, the building of truly, deeply, permanently affordable homes that we used to do in this province. Now, Ontario is the only province in Canada that doesn't already build those homes. We are absolutely going to start building again. And I am so proud of our Homes Ontario plan, because we are committed to building 1.5 million truly, deeply, permanently affordable homes in the province of Ontario over 10 years. And that, by the way, includes 60,000 supportive housing units, which is what we're going to need to make sure that we can move people out of those encampments and out of homelessness. But look, the other question I want to ask people is, where are the houses? Where are the homes that Doug Ford said he was going to build? Where are the homes, Doug? Because they're not in our communities. They're not in northern communities. They're not anywhere in Ontario right now. He has not done a dang thing about it. That is the truth. And now there's a whole generation of young people who cannot even imagine buying a home and can't even find an affordable rental home. We're going to build those homes, and not only are we going to do that, but we are going to build those homes with lumber from right here in Northern Ontario. We are going to tariff-proof our economy long-term by buying Ontario and building Ontario. 7 years of this government, housing costs are through the roof. It is time that you had a government that was on your side.
We will open this up for a discussion for the next 2 or 3 minutes. Doug Ford, we're going to start with you about how your party plans to address and provide for more affordable housing.
Well, I'll tell you how. It's very simple. We're going to protect the people of Ontario. And how you build more homes, you protect businesses, you protect their jobs against Donald Trump's tariffs.
Oh my God.
You know, we heard from Bonnie Crombie about the DCs. You know, it wasn't too long ago, I went out there and said, let's cut the DCs by 50%. Not all, just by 50%. You had to pull Bonnie Crombie off the ceiling. She was out in front of the media saying, we can't afford to get rid of the DCs, the land transfer tax. You know, something's very simple. You protect the economy, you protect the people's jobs. Yeah. They're going to have an opportunity to go out there.
Marge Stiles, I'd like Marge Stiles to go first.
Loud noises.
Mr. Ford.
Close down and leave this
Mr. Ford, we'll let Marge Stiles speak to this.
You have not answered the question, because the truth is, there are no homes being built in Ontario. Right? Housing starts are lower than they've been since the 50s. That's the truth, under his government. And so actually, at the end of the day, Doug, people are not, they don't have any options out there. You talk about Donald Trump, you have shown us who you are. You say one thing in front of the public like this, and you go to say another thing behind closed doors every single time. You did that on the Greenbelt. You lied to Ontarians, and you're lying to them now about homes and housing. But you know what? They don't believe you, because they're living the reality of it right now. They're living it. They know that they can't find an affordable home. They know that young people know that they can never even imagine owning a home in the province of Ontario. Ontario has become a have-not province in Canada. We are falling so very far behind. Doug,
Let Bonnie Crombie.
not built a single
Bondi
home.
Crombie would like to speak.
Absolutely right. You fly off in the middle of an election for photo ops in Washington with low-level advisors. What's the point? Why'd you call the election? We have a housing crisis here. We're at a tipping point. Do you know there are 200,000 people who don't have a home, who are homeless, who are living in your parks or living in encampments? We need a strategy for the North that allows you, gives you the capital that you need dedicated towards building housing for people who are homeless, to get them out of encampments. But let's ensure that you have those wraparound services that you need, so they have the treatment, so they have access to the treatment that they need to get them off their addictions. But the North in particular needs a specific fund of capital, a specific strategy to help you build housing not only that is affordable, but supportive housing for those that need it.
I want to let Mike Schreiner have a quick word before we move on to the next question. Go ahead, Mr. Schreiner.
This premier, Mr. Ford, has said no to every housing solution that works for people. Why? Because the interests of wealthy land speculators are more important to this government than you, the people of Ontario, struggling just to put a roof over your head. And to play politics with tariffs at a time when we should all be working across party lines, showing strength through unity to push back against Donald Trump, to distract from the failure to actually build homes and the $8.3 billion Greenbelt scandal, I believe is highly irresponsible. I'm ready to work with all of us up here.
Thanks, Mike.
Every single one of us up here to stand united against Trump's tariffs.
That's right.
And at the same time, build homes, fix healthcare, fix education, and ensure we have a strong economy.
Build the homes, stop the crime.
We need a wartime effort.
Bring it home.
Everyone working together to solve the housing crisis.
Families, not speculators, not
Doug Ford,
developers.
we'll give you
That's what
20
families
seconds
need.
to wrap up. Doug Ford.
We put the Building Faster Fund that Mississauga didn't meet, but everyone else met around the area.
You always have an
We
excuse,
put
though.
$3 billion towards infrastructure to build 160,000 more homes.
Where are they,
They
Doug? Where are
voted
they?
against it. All three
Where are
parties
they?
voted against it.
It's because it
Where are
doesn't
they?
work.
But a
We're
majority
making
government,
sure we
where's the
cut
housing,
red
Doug?
tape and regulations.
1.5
All three
million
parties
homes. You didn't get it
voted
done.
against it. And honestly, with all due respect, Bonnie, you should be the last one speaking about building homes. You had the lowest builds in all
I
of
am
Ontario.
so proud of
You
my
know?
city and my
Oh
record.
my
We're gonna
Doug Ford, I'll
stop.
take my
I'll
record
tell you,
over yours any day.
Mississauga's
It is kind of refreshing to hear like a political debate about like healthcare and housing and all that stuff, but like the politicians who are actually responsible for that stuff, rather than just like federal politicians making a bunch of claims about things they don't really have that much control over.
Your
you,
record
I'll
is a
tell you that
disaster.
right
You know what? Look at this.
Stop,
Look at
please.
this.
Thank you.
It's outrageous,
Stop it,
too.
please.
Fighting over, who's built the least housing in Ontario at a time when we have a housing and homelessness crisis in
We
the
need a
province.
wartime effort.
We are going to move on to the next topic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next topic, next question is about the forest industry. And the industry that's had to deal with tariffs and consolidation. Meantime, we've seen billions of dollars of investment to the electric vehicle and battery manufacturing sectors in Southern Ontario. The question from Phenom, what will your government do to see that kind of investment in the forest industry in Northern Ontario? Mike Schreiner, we begin with you.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. This is such a critically important question. 137,000 people working in the forestry sector. And the 3 plants that have closed or been idled in Northern Ontario, Espanola, Terrace Bay, and Thessalon, shows you the dire situation our forestry sector is in. We need a government that's going to step up, I think, first of all, by calling a task force together to talk about how we can modernize and upgrade our forestry sector. We need modern plants. And we need to make sure those plants are in a position to take advantage of the huge opportunities in the fast-growing emerging green economy. We need to be building mass timber buildings to maximize the value of our forests. We need to have a biomass strategy that shows how our forest industry can be a part of generating clean electricity in Ontario. We need our forestry sector to also have
Alrighty,
biomass
I think I
as
gotta
part
log
of
off. We'll maybe watch more of this if I stream tomorrow. But who can we
thermal
read?
heating.
Who's online? Maybe we'll read Cosmopolitics. They're online. What's cosmopolitics? What are they watching?
Into a trance, and she had a vision, and now she believes that what she imagined actually happened to her.
Huh, something fun.
Which was?
Oh, it's a long story.
Nice chilled
She has a very
Saturday evening stream. All right.
bizarre,
Thanks for hanging out,
vivid
guys.
imagination.
Talk to you later.
Well, what is her story?
Now, can you
I'm, very
raid? I don't know anyone.
Well,
raid on
in
YouTube,
short,
so
she
we won't.
believes
But
that she was condemned and hanged.
you're
for
very
witch.
welcome. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight, guys. I appreciate it.
I told you she had a vivid imagination, to say the least.
And I'll see you around. Maybe
Believes
probably
she fell
stream
into the
sometime
hands
next
of a
week.
witch hunter,
Either next
fellow
weekend
who
or during the
roamed
week, depending on what my
countryside,
schedule is like. But
exorcising witches
thanks for
and
hanging out.
hobgoblins.
Adios.
I even had a name for it.
Good night.
Let me
Good
see,
luck.
What was it? Yes.
Bye-bye now.
Trask.
How curious. And what did this fellow
Alrighty.
try?